Maseches Bava Kama. Daf Tzadiches Amud Beis. Now we can start. The two dots are Chometz Vavar of Pesach. Omer lo Harei Shelcha Lefanecha. The Shiur Lilu Nishmas of Imoiri. Menachem ben Akiva. Ve Lilu Nishmas Sol Bas Moshe Rus Bas Sholem. Weiter. Chometz Vavar of Pesach. Omer lo Shelcha Lefanecha. Line starts with the word Lefanecha. So basically, the Mishnah said as follows. We all know that when a Ganev steals something, if the item changed physically, there's Shinui, and with all the conditions that we have, Shinui is koine. The Ganev is now the owner of the newly changed object, right? And now that the object changed, now it belongs to the Ganev. The Ganev has to give back like the original amount that he stole. Yeah, let's say you have something that was changed drastically to make it simpler and it's now much worse. You have an animal that now got much older and weaker and sicker. You keep the old animal to yourself, says the owner, the old current cranky animal, and give me back the $2 million that the original behemoth was worth when you stole it when it was young and robust. But when it comes to invisible nezek, when it comes to a change which is not visible, which is only halachic, if the persona stole a jar of cookies and the holiday of Passover came and went very quickly, and now the jar of cookie looks the same, smells the same, talks the same, feels the same, but is not kosher anymore, and therefore is worth zero. What's going to be the halacha? Says the Mishnah. I'm just translating the Mishnah so far, explaining the Mishnah. Says the Mishnah, the Ganev can tell him, this is a jar of cookies. It was not changed one iota. It's even as fresh as before. It's before the due date, and there's a lot of preservatives there, and therefore you can take that back. It's worth zero. Loch patli. I don't care, says the Mishnah, because the change is not physical. It's only spiritual, halachic, metaphysical, and all these fancy words. Back to Gemara. Man Tana, who is the Tana that believes in such an interesting concept? Man Tana oimin b'isu ano eshel cholofanecha. Who's the Tana that says when it comes to isu ano are worth zero? They're even worse. The money that came out that's out of circulation. Isu ano. Who's the one who believes that the isu ano you say eshel cholofanecha, you can just give it back to him the way it was? Who believes in such a concept that as a Ganev, if I was a Ganev, I can give back the item which is really worth nothing and halachically worth nothing. Who's the Tana who believes that? I'm stopping myself. I owe you an answer from yesterday, Baruch, but we'll continue and then I'll talk about what your issue from before. The Tana that believes that Isur Hano, yeah, if somebody stole an item and became Osir in the realm of the Ganev, and he wants to give it back, he can give back the Osir item, even though it's Osir Bano, is Rabbi Yaakov. Only Rabbi Yaakov, nobody else. The Tanya, it says in the Brisa, Show Shehemis, a show that killed the person. What do you do with that show? Stone him. Ad Shelo Nigmar Dinoi. This show, before there was the Gmar Din, before we actually sentenced him to death, before he was taken to court, or while he's in the middle of the court case, but he wasn't yet decided, then that show is, well, maybe less valuable because it's on the way to the wrong place, to the death place. But Lamaisa, the show is not yet labeled as Osur Ba'ano. And therefore, it's a regular show. If you sold the show, as long as it wasn't yet decided it's going to die, the sale is a good sale. Mochu, it's a good sale. And why? It says Rashi even more. And now that show will not be sentenced. You know that? They're not going to kill the show because he has to have the same bailim throughout the whole process. So maybe that's a leeway. That's a different story. Ekdishoy mukdash. If you're makdish it, you consecrated it. The Beis Hamikdash, the Ekdish works. It's a regular animal. Farvos nisht. And they're not going to kill the show. Shochto, you shechte the show. Shchita kshera. Begatz edecharedis. Besoroi muto. You're allowed to eat the meat because it's not osur bano. And the shechtim are from the dats. I said begatz is a joke, yeah? B'sorei mutar, the basar is kosher. Echziro shomer lebe'olav. Let's say this whole farce, this whole story happened in the hands of a shomer, a shomer that somebody was looking after the show, and it happened in the house of the shomer, the show gored, and now the shomer gave it back to the owner. Muchzal. That's called giving back a show. You may be angry with him. Why did you let the show go? But lemaisa, if I was shomer your shore, now I gave you back a show that gored, as long as he wasn't sentenced to death, his status did not change. And not even his status. Not the status and not the status. Nothing changed. It's the same show halachically. Here it is. Go and enjoy your shore and deal with BSD. Misha nigmar dina. But here comes a contrast. Let's say now the show nigmar dino, there's a gmar din, literally the finishing off, the last final stage of the din, and they decided, bam, 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 yeah, that the show will die. Now it has a label of show niskal, so even though it's jumping around, I don't care. It's a dead shore walking, as you said. If you sell it, it's not a sale. Why isn't it a sale? Because it's dishonest? No, because it's worth so much. 0.00 times 0 minus 0 divided by 0. This shore is worth nothing because it's not only going to die, it's also bahano. Can you sell a cheeseburger to someone, goy or yid? Not only it's osir, it's halachically impossible because the cheeseburger is not worth anything. And the money will also be worth nothing. In other words, halacha gives it, completely devaluates it, strips it of any value. So mimela, if you sold the show, it's just not a sale. Ekdishoy ena mukdash. You were makdish it. It's not hekdish. How can be makdish? Thin air. Shchotoy. You shechted it. Best shochet of Badatz and Rubin and Landau and everybody. Ain't working. The story also, the bosso is also because that shore again is just dead meat and is also bano. Oh, here comes the machlokes with Rabbi Yaakov. Here comes the fun. Here starts the fun. Tanna Kama says, well, we follow the same route, the same idea. If this atrocity happened in the hands of the shomer, and he was sentenced to, the shomer was the one who actually represented the show in Beis Din. The police knocked on the door of the shomer. Mr. Shomer, we know that you have a shor nogach that killed someone yesterday. We have 2 edim. Please come with us, and bring us the shore to take the shore to court. Let's assume now that the shore has to be present in court, which is one of the opinions, because you have to treat the shore like a human being. Are we in California now? Yeah, and what? And if you sentence him to death, you have to have 23 people, and possibly the shore has to be present, like a person being judged has to be there. So now the shomer is the one who took him to court and followed him through, and he was sentenced to death. Now says Rabbi Yaakov, says Tanna Kama, you can't give it back to the original owner. Why? Because now the shore is worth 0. I gave you a shore that was nice and innocent, yeah? Maybe a bit wild. I gave you a shore worth how much? 20,000 shekels. Now, the shore you're giving me, forget about all the other baggages I have against you. We'll talk about that with the psychologist, but right now, yeah, 0 is what you're giving me. I gave you a shore worth 20,000. Now, you're giving me a shore worth 0 because Beis Din sentenced it. So, no, I don't accept that as chazara. Give me back $20,000 in cash, Bitcoin, transferred, credit card, but you can't give me the shore because it's not worth anything. So I assume right now that that's what Chachamim say. Rabbi Yaakov oimer, boom, boom, boom. Says Rabbi Yaakov, argues, Af mishnigmar dinoi. Even after the din was finished and the shore was sentenced to death, wow, the shomer may be able to give it back. 1 second. May give it back to the owner because why? Must be Rabbi Yaakov is our man. Rabbi Yaakov is the Tana of our Mishnah. Just like, let me just read, even before you ask, by the way, all this we saw yesterday, it's just Chazorah, and we'll just do the my love, and then I'll say something, and then we'll listen to Baruch. My love must be, let us explain the Machlokes Tanna Kama and Rabbi Yaakov. Very simple, as I just told you now. The Hakamiflagi must be, this is the point of Machlokes. There, Rabbi Yaakov Sova, Rabbi Yaakov believes, Oimrin Bisuri Hano, Areshel Cholafanecho. Rabbi Yaakov says, even though there's an Isur Hano, although now the item be it Chometz after Pesach, be it truma that's tome, be it a shor niskal. Whatever happened is a spiritual halachic change. I don't care. I only look at the physical side. And since the shore looks the same, smells the same, feels the same, is the same, Imela can give it back to, says Rabbi Yaakov. Aha, must be Rabbi Yaakov is the master of our Mishnah, says Rav Chizda. That also when it comes to what? When it comes to the chometz, Rabbi Yaakov is the only one who would say, I stole a jar of cookies. Jar of cookies. I stole Blue Label. Shivas Regal. Yeah, whatever. Yeah. Blue Label before Pesach and gave it back after Pesach. I can give it back the same thing. I don't have to give you anything else. Rabbanan Savri ain't Amrin b'Sorah no Eshel Chalafanecho. And Rabbanan are of the opinion, no. Isra no, we are religious. We are very religious. We believe in religion and spirituality. Let's hold hands, yeah? And what? And we say, since now it's worth nothing halachically, you cannot say, you can't just take it back. What do you mean take it back? It's not worth anything. And therefore, Rabbanon, just like by the show, they say, you cannot give back the show. So to by chometz, they would argue on our Mishnah. They would not be the narrators of the Mishnah. And they would say, by chometz too, just like by show, you cannot give back the chometz. This is Rav Chizda's pshat / theory. Rav Chizda believes that our Mishnah is a very limited Mishnah, only believed by Rabbi Yaakov. So far, so good, and so far that's what we'll learn yesterday. I'm willing to hear questions now a little bit. That was Rabbi Chizda. Omar le Rabba. Rabba comes and Rabba now wants to argue on Rav Chizda. Omar le Rabba, loy. No. I have a whole different explanation regarding the machlokes between Rabbi Yaakov and Rabbanon. The kula line starts with the kula, by the way. The kula al mamrina b'Sorah no Eshel Chalafanecho. Wow. Says Rabba, no. Both opinions, Tanakama and who? And Rabbi Yaakov, they all believe. When it comes to regular Isra, no, soon we'll see what's regular. When it comes to chometz in Pesach, for example, everybody believes our Mishnah is right. You can give him back to Johnny Walker after Pesach and say, bye, so sorry. Yeah, and go back home, the Ganev. Because Lamaisa, physically, it's there. And that's all the Torah demands. And the lack of value is spiritual. Dim can, because if not, niflagu b'chometz b'Pesach. Because, excuse me, Rav Chizda, why didn't they argue in the Mishnah? Our Mishnah did not voice any other opinions, right? No other opinions were mentioned in the Mishnah. The Mishnah says chometz b'Pesach is returned. It says, it sounds to me like everyone agrees consensusly that chometz b'Pesach is okay to return. Ooh, so what's the argument regarding the show? Oh, Ella, Omar Rabba, that takes us back to Daf Mem Hey. Very, very cool pshat. Also, the difference here between Yaakov and Rabbanan is a completely different story. Soon you'll understand what that means. They argue about, do you or don't you sentence the shore to death in his presence or not in his presence? Do we have a requirement, a prerequisite, that when you put down the gavel and you bang and you say, the shore is chayav misa, in the basin of 23 people, we treat the shore like a human being. You think I'm an animal lover? Do you think I'm a closeted leftist animal lover? The Orach Chaim in last week's parsha, before last week, Achrei Mois, the Orach Chaim says that an animal that's being shechted outside Beis Hamikdash for korban, is that recommended? To shecht the korban outside Beis Hamikdash? It's an Isser. It's a Raisa. The Raisa, and it's a chorus. And it says in the Bible, you read the Old Testament sometimes? Sometimes. So it says there that dam shofach, he spilled blood. Says the Orach Chaim, if you kill an animal for no good reason, for korban or for human consumption, for the protein, you're a killer. Dam shofach. Says the Orach Chaim, that we see that in the halacha of when you execute a shore and you have the judicial process before, you have to have 23 people. Why 23 people and not 3? In monetary laws, you have to have 3 people. But when it comes to dinei nefoshes, only when you kill a person, you have to have 23. When you kill a show, it's like killing a person. And therefore, you have to have 23 people present. Now there's a ad kedei kach, says Orach Chaim. Big animal lovers we are. So now. Yeah, say to your leftist cousin is not from. Try to in the car. Yeah. So now comes the Mechlokas Rabbi Yaakov Rabbanon. Does the shore have to be present or not? Soon you'll see how it's connected to our sugya. Rabbanon Savri line starts with Rabbanon. Rabbanon Savri ain't done with dinner shor shaloi befonov. Rabbanon say the shore, you do not sentence the shore not in his presence. The shore has to be duly, respectfully present at Beis Din when you actually judge it. Now go back to our sugya, the argument between the shomer and the owner. Now listen to this. The Omerlei comes the owner to the shomer and he calls him, I don't say bad words, you shoite. Had you brought it to me on time before Beis Din caught it, I would have chased him away to the meadow. I would have made sure that the show has disappeared. The police would knock on my door. Mister, where we know you have, the card. We know you have a shomer. We have a show that gored. Now it's a shore that gored. Yeah, really. Have a look in my dining room, bedroom. Yeah, whatever in the bathroom. And the shore would be in Agam. And therefore, Hashta. Now, Mr. Tia, you tipish, you the shomer, you think you're a cute, law-abiding citizen. Hashta, you shomer, Mr. Tia beyad man, you gave it to someone, the lomatzina l'shtur dina ba'adei. You gave the shore to Beis Din, you, I'm explaining according to Rashi and the Pnei Yoshua. The story is as follows. When it's chometz bepesach, yeah? And the Ganev did before Pesach, and during Pesach, he keeps chometz. He keeps Pesach. He only kept it in his cupboard, like the Chiloni neighbors we had in Tel Aviv. They don't need chometz, but they have chometz in the house in the cupboard just in case, yeah? So now, you the guy, listen carefully to the chat. Yeah, that's, I worked hard on it. It's Rashi and it's Pnei Yoshua. In the case of chometz, say Rabbanon, really, I can return the chometz as a Ganev after Pesach. I'm not an active part in the story. Pesach came, Pesach left. I kept it in my cupboard. Did I bring Pesach to the world? No. I'm not a Kadosh Baruch Hu. I did not invent Pesach. I could do without Pesach. And his wife's going crazy for 2 months and his figure is coming. No, I didn't bring Pesach. Pesach came. It's not my fault. In such a case, when the spiritual nezek of Pesach came and I'm sitting cross-armed, Pesach and Pesach. I'm singing with my kids, taking them to the amusement park. I didn't bring Pesach. In that case, Rabbanan say, after Pesach, I can take Johnny Walker together with his cookies and bring them back to the guy. But when it comes to the shore, it's your fault, says the owner to the shomer. You took the animal and took it to Beis Din. You took it to the police's hands, to the Beis Din's hands. And that's called that is considered you being a partner in the show's spiritual nezek. Then I say you cannot give it back to me because you are the one who caused it. That's why it's nezek beyodayim, sort of. Okay, that's Rashi. That's explanation of Rashi. Here it's beyodayim. Here it's not beyodayim. Here he schlepped the shore and took it to the police. He took it from his farm and brought it to Beis Din. You did a nezek beyodayim. Because had it been by me, I would have been able to hide it. If you think, by the way, that the owner is some kind of schwindler, you're showing him explain, it doesn't mean that I have to illegally hide it. I could have dealt with Beis Din. I would say the shore, let's talk about it. I would speak to Beis Din and say, my shore had difficult childhood, the mommy didn't like him, the shore would be out of the story, and I would negotiate. I'd be able to negotiate, maybe pay something, do something. I have my machers in Beis Din, I'm the cousin of the secretary. I'd be able to manage somehow. You were too much of a cute little law-abiding citizen. You probably moved from America to Israel half a day ago, so you think you have to keep all the laws, and therefore you gave it to the Beis Din. So it's your fault. You actively caused the spiritual damage to come. It wasn't something that came automatically. And now you pay me 20,000 now. That's Rabbanon. That's Rashi and Pnei Yoshua. Rabbi Yaakov Soba. Rabbi Yaakov says no. Rabbi Yaakov says, as much as we want to be humane and we love the animals, we have 23 people, but you do sentence the shore even not in his presence, even in his absence, Mimela, doesn't make a difference if the shomer was there or not there. It's a moot point. The Omalei, because then the shomer can tell the owner, my avdilei, what do you want me to do? Sof sof of a gamri ledina shalobefonov. At the end of the day, they would gamri ledina, they would have finished his sentence, even not in his presence. Me taking it or me not taking it is irrelevant. If I would have told him, the shor is not here, so what? They would still continue with the whole court case. It would be not a relevant point. Emela says Rabbi Yaakov that now the owner is, the shomer is potter. Because the shomer can say, that's a chometz coming, it's a Pesach coming, creating a spiritual thing. Beis Din came, I didn't bring him to Beis Din, and it doesn't make a difference. I don't have to bring him to Beis Din. It came and went automatically without my participation. I'm not an active partner in the story because what? Oh. Says the Gemara Daf Mem Hey. Everybody agrees that we have to be nice and humane and cutesy, and we don't judge him by 3 people. We judge him by. That's Orochai. Everyone agrees the shor is sokel the guy by all of yumas. Now do we believe the animal lovers in San Pan? We believe the Torah that says the shor is sokel the guy by all of yumas. We compare the death of the shor to the death of the Bailim. If the Bailim would have been a Nervid of a Zoro or hurt his, injure his parents, how many people would have to be present in his din of the owner? 23. Shor too has to have 23. Everyone agrees to that. Yet, machloikis is, does the shor have to be present or not? Why? What's the machloikis? Says the Gemara Daf Mem Hey. I'm not reading inside. Actually, you don't have to flip with me. Says that the Kama says, well, just like you said, Baruch Nemhem Wadalef in the middle of the page. If you want, you can look. Tanakama says we go all the way. We're animal lovers, extreme. Just like the owner has to be, just like the human being has to be present in Beis Din when you judge him and sentence him, so to the animal. Rabbi Yaakov says, guys, excuse me, what's the connection? You know why a person has to be in Beis Din when he's sentenced to death? Because he has what to say. Before you judge him, before you sentence him to death, he's going to scream and say, I didn't do it. I have other edim. I was wrong. I didn't know. My mommy took me to amusement parks only 3 times every year and not 4 times. Difficult, terrible childhood. You don't know. He's going to cook up something. And Mimela, what? By a person, you have to have him in Beis Din. But shor, about time to who, says the Gemara. A shor cannot talk. As much as we'll have animals, a shor cannot speak. And therefore, the shor is going to go, boo. You know, what's the point, says Rabbi Yaakov? Looking at the logic behind it. Mimela says Rabbi Yaakov, back to Tzadich Amud base. Mimela says Rabbi Yaakov, what's the point? Yeah, Lemais, at the end of the day, they would have killed the shor either way. So the fact I brought it to Beis Din, me bringing it to Beis Din doesn't mean anything, right? It's just like Pesach came automatically without me inviting Pesach. And then it says Rabbi Yaakov, I can give you back the shor, even though it's a dead shor walking. So let's summarize. According to Rav Chizda, we see our Mishnah. Let's summarize. Bezras Hashem, clear summary. Very, very easy. Our Mishnah only presented one opinion, which was not argued on. The Mishnah spoke about chometz. Mr. Walker, Johnny Walker, walked out of the guy's cabin, yeah, because somebody made him walk. Somebody stole Johnny Walker before Pesach, gave it back after Pesach. Says the Mishnah, no problem. You don't have to pay him the $200. The Johnny Walker is there. It's enough. Spiritual nezikin or not nezikin. Hezek shenanika. Who believes in that? Says Rav Chizda. That's only Rabbi Yaakov. Only Rabbi Yaakov believes such things, just like the Shor and Iskal. But Chachamim, Shor and Iskal says you have to pay a new one. They would also say by Chometz you have to pay a new one. That's Rav Chizda. Rabba says no. Rabba says everybody agrees is conceptually Hezek shenanika, invisible spiritual nezek. I don't have to pay for. Providing that I did not cause it. So in the chometz, I'm passive. I stole it before Pesach. That was obviously not passive. But the Isser Hano, I didn't bring the Isser Hano. Pesach came. What do you want? It comes whether you want to or not. I was sitting there not doing anything the whole of Pesach. I didn't touch nothing. Yemela what? Here's a machloike. So there everyone would agree, says Rabbah, that I can give it back to you. Hezek like that, Shein and Ikar is not Nezek. I can hareshel cholofanecha. What's the argument about the shor? No, the shor is a different story. Because by the shor, according to Rabbanon, they believe that you can only sentence a shor in his presence. The shomer was trying to be very law-abiding and nice and brought the shor to Beis Din biyadayin, says Rashi. Says the owner, you flunked. You you caused the nezek by bringing it to BSD. I would have done better. I would have managed to dodge out. And Mimela, that's what Rabbanan hold. Rabbi Yaakov says no. And Yaakov says you judge this shore anyways. It's not a relevant point. When it comes to Pesach, it's a passive spiritual nezek, I would call it. In that case, say everybody, according to Rabbah, everyone would agree that the nezek that you can give back the cookies and the whiskey without further ado, and it's all fine, says Rabbah. Okay. Ashkeche Rav Chizda Rabbah bar Shmuel. Rav Chizda met with Rabbah bar Shmuel. He found him, he met him, and now he asked him, Omalei, Rav Chizda asked him, remember, Rav Chizda is the one who wanted to say, to minimize and qualify, and say that our Mishnah that says you can give back the jar of cookies and go free is only according to Rabbi Yaakov. Omalei, he asked Rabbah bar Shmuel, Tanita midi bisur no? Did you find any Mishnah regarding Yisra or no? I'm Rav Chizda. I'm arguing with Rabbah. I want to find the Brisa. The Brisa will help us decide who's right. Yeah, it's like you argue with a guy and you say, "Let's ask the rabbi. Let's ask the Brisa. Did you find a Brisa about it?" Omar Lei, yes, I found a Brisa. Not the Brisa Rav Chizda wants to hear. Yeah, I found a Brisa. Tnina, it says in the Brisa, the Heishiv Esagzela. It says in the Torah, Vayikra, hey, Heishiv Esagzela, you should return the stolen object. Asher Gozal. What did the Torah have to say? He should return the stolen object that he stole. Well, if it's stolen, so he stole it. It's not the New York Times. Yeah, this is the Torah. Why do you add 2 extra words that he stole? We know it's stolen. Answers the Gemara. Yachzir ke'en shegozal. You all know the answer. You should only return the actual object if it retained the same shape, same value, same, as opposed to shinui. Mikan omu. From here they derived. Gozal matbea v'nifsal. If somebody stole a matbaya, a coin, and it was disqualified, you can call it out of circulation. Peiros ve'kivu. Fruit and they're rotten, they're not very rotten. They look more or less the same, but they're not as good. But outwardly they look okay, let's say. Like the cherries I bought from the Druze, good on the outside, but rotten in the inside, yeah. Yain ve'hichmitz. And the Gross says wine ve'hikrim. The wine actually looks the same, but is really not the same. When you taste it, you want to spit it out. Truma v'nitmes. The truma, that's spiritual. A guy stole truma from a kohen. What's a kohen going to eat? Now the truma became tome. Let's say not his fault. Somebody else put some dead mouse on the truma. Now nobody can eat truma tmeah. So now spiritual change. Chometz bava of a Pesach. Chometz after Pesach is not the same as chometz before Pesach halachically, although physically it's the same glen filich. Behema v'nevda ba'avera. A behema, and now there was an avera done to the behema. Let's say somebody had relations with the behema, with the zara. Now it's disqualified for korban, sometimes for regular use. The and shelo nigmar dinoi. The last one, and that's the tricky one. That's about to be sentenced, but was not yet sentenced to death. It's in the process. All the media, they're all excited about the new court case, but he wasn't yet sentenced to death. In all these spiritual changes, he can tell him, no problem. In other words, like our Mishnah, you can actually take the jug of cookies. It's chometz. I don't care. It's chometz now. Take it back. The truma is tome. Take it back. What I don't see doesn't happen. Now, the Gemara is medayek, very clear deal. Man shomeslei de omer ad shelo nigmar dinoi. Did you hear the last sentence of the Brisa, my friends? Who is the one who says ad shelo nigmar dinoi before the shore was sentenced to death? Then you can give it back in. The clear, screaming deal is once the shore is sentenced to death, you cannot give it back. Why? It's only spiritual change. The shore looks the same, smells the same, feels the same, and eats the same. All of a sudden, the shore is different. Oh, must be who's talking over here? Rabbanon. These are Rabbanon, and not Rabbi Yaakov. Biktani. And yet it says in the Bryce, and the very same Bryce, that even according to Rabbanon, we see that even Rabbanon and Rabbi Yaakov, they both agree that by chometz, you can say it's the same jug of cookies, take it back. You tell me, people, I want everybody here to tell me or be able to tell me. So why did Rabbanon say, why is it different in the case of the show? In the case of the show that is now sentenced to death because the shomer cooperated, why then we say, don't give me back the show, give me 20,000? Because the shomer caused it. When the nezek happened by itself and it's only spiritual, you can say, listen, I did not invite Pesach to come. I love Rav Pesach prone to come and talk, but the holiday Pesach I did not bring. I didn't do anything physical here since the Gneva till now. Not my fault. HaKadosh Baruch Hu decided to place Pesach on the cookies. Bimela can give it back to you the same the way it is, without any change, without further ado. Only when it comes to the Shora Niskal, I cooperated. I'm a bad boy. I'm the one who cooperated with this matzav of this Shor being sentenced. But that's exactly against Rav Chizda and pro Rabbah. Now Rav Chizda that's looking for a brisa, asking his friend Rabbi Bar Shmuel, he found the wrong brisa. Says Rav Chizda, okay, listen to the sentence now Rav Chizda says, listen to the line. Omele, Rav Chizda reacted like that, and he said, responded, if you find them, don't tell them anything. Who is they? Who is them? The KGB? Who is they? Says Rashi. If you find the Bnei Yeshiva, if you find our friends from Yeshiva, from Koilo, from Besmedrash, don't tell them that you found a brisa against me because they're going to make fun of me. Yeah, they're going to be happy that they found a question from the brisa against me. I ask a question and then you can ask a question. Sorry that I'm jumping the queue. Says I'm asking a question. Chas v'shalom, is this the level of Rav Chizda? Weren't the moroi mevakshe emes? Rav Chizda says, don't tell anybody that I was wrong. Be a man. And says Rashi, I saw an answer, Misyata Deshmaya, I saw an Achron that says something which I didn't understand, but he led me to a Gemara and Daf Kaf Chesam Udvesim Brachas. Some of us say, I don't always say it, and I really should, there's a tefillah you say before you start learning, not Birkas Torah. And part of this tefillah, the Yotzei Lefanecha, Shetor Nebe Meot Osecha, it says there, V'loi kashel b'dvar halacha, v'yismechu b'chaveirai. Hashem, please make sure that I don't fail, I don't have any faults, any mistakes in my learning. So my friend should not be happy. There are two ways to explain it. One way is to explain my friend should not be happy that the friends who argue with me, even if it's a friendly argument, if I found out wrong, they'll say, ha ha, you're wrong. And they'll not just hurt me, they'll be over an avera. If they'll be happy, and that's almost automatic, two people argue, and then one person goes like, ha, I was right. Here I opened the encyclopedia, L'havdil the Brisa, and the other person feels the shtickle, So that feeling you cause to your friends is an avera. Rav Chizda did not want to cause them to sin. If I am found out to be wrong and I admit I'm wrong, Rav Chizda admitted it's wrong. But if you start advertising it in yeshiva and people say Rav Chizda is wrong, Rav Chizda is wrong, they'll be sinning by making fun of me. It's not that I care so much. I don't want them to go over the avera of them making fun of Talmid Chacham, Befula, Nos Dvarim, Dafta Lecha Kamaycha. I don't cause that leaf never, so you better keep quiet, don't tell them. And Rabbi is right, and we'll follow Rabbi's psak. And that's about it. Yes, Baruch. Agever. We're just before the Mishnah, a few lines before the Mishnah, and I'm going to mention the thing of yesterday. I'm listening. Okay. We have here, this is a classical Gemara of Machlokes Tanoim, followed by Machlokes Ameroim. Rabbi Yaakov and Rabbanon, nobody was proven wrong by Rabbi Yaakov and Rabbanon. No. This Brisa at the end followed Rabbanon and not Rabbi Yaakov, and that's fine. A Tana called Rabbi Yaakov doesn't have to be good with the Brisa, doesn't have to follow the Brisa, right? There's no question of Rabbi Yaakov. Later generation, later on, there were Amoyroim, many years later, came Rav Chizda and Rabbah. They argued how to understand Machlokas Rabbi Yaakov and Rabbanon. And the Brisa proved us that Rav Chizda misunderstood Machlokas Rabbi Yaakov and Rabbanon. They're not all on the same page. Rabbi Yaakov and Rabbanon are here, Rav Chizda and Rabbah are a few generations later explaining their interpreting Rabbi Akiva and Rabbanon. Okay, better be. Yeah. Okay.
What is yours before.
Reminding us. Two more things before the Mishnah, and then we'll go back to yesterday's shiur for a minute. Peros ve'erkivu. The pears were rotten. So I thought, why can you say hareshel chalafanecha? He stole fresh fruit right before the Mishnah. Tzadik ches amud beis, a few lines before the Mishnah towards the bottom of the page. You can take the fruit and say, although the fruit are not as fresh, they begin to rot, you can still take them as they are, and that's it. You may ask a question, what? Fruit that are rotting, beginning to putrefy? Of course they look different. If they look different, it's a shinui. How can I say reshel chalafanecha? The Gemara asks it differently. I gave you one solution. Maybe they look nice on the outside, and inside they're all rotten. That could be. But look at the Gemara. Frag the Gemara that nan. There's another Mishnah that says if the pears are rotten now, then you, the Ganav, acquired them by Shinui. Shinui that now they're rotten, and now give me the value of nice, beautiful, pristine, good-looking fruit. So it's a stira. Here we see that the fruit can be returned as they are, and here we say that the rotten fruit, no, cannot be returned. You keep the disgusting brown bananas and give me back nice fresh ones, or the value. So what's that? It's a stira. Forget about my question. It's a stira between the Bryce and the Mishnah. Amar Pope depends. Kan shirkivu kulon. Kan shirkivu miktoson. Depends. If the whole bunch together was rotten, all of them are rotten now, then the change is the change. You have to know, even though we think rotten apples are terrible, let's say they're not very rotten. They're not as good as before. It's not necessarily shinui. We're not punishing the Ganav over here, by the way. It's called shinui. To call shinui, that's not necessarily shinui. It's not so different. It's not a whole new item. Apples that are terrific, good, fresh apples, and apples that are week and a half old, let's say, they're not a whole new creation. It's not, from a stick to a snake. It's not a whole new thing, right? Right? Apple is an apple. Now it's grade B, not grade A. The Mel says the Gemara, if you're kivu kulon, if the entire bunch, the entire bushel, and by the way, pears usually is wheat, by the way, in the third, that's besides the point in the Mishnah. If the whole bunch is rotten, even if it's not super rotten, that's it. The whole thing it was affected by the new matzav, that's called shinui. That's a new product. You want to sell it in the market, you'd sell it already under different category, class A, class C. Kachir kivu miktzoson. But if some of the fruit is good and some of the fruit are not as good, as a bunch in general, you don't call it a different name. You call it class A minus. Class A, but pick the nice ones, Yeah? So Mimela, it's not called enough of a shinui, just because some of them are better, some of them are worse. Mimela, the Ganav can still give them back as they are, because they're not terribly terrible, and he doesn't have to pay anything else. Back to the sugya of Garmi, before we start the next Mishnah, I promised you yesterday to talk about another case of Garmi, which Baruch reminded us from Daf Chavav Amud Beis. What happens if a person throws? That's a very weird case. What happens Daf Chavav Amud Beis? A person throws what you call it? He throws a kli, the vessel, something. What? Ming vase worth, I don't know, $1 million. Yeah, okay. Like I have a few of them at home in every room, especially the children's room. We have them all over. Yeah, Ming vase, right? You throw it from the window of the top floor, yeah, and there are mattresses on the pavement, on the sidewalk, to make sure that the Ming vase will stay safe. But I myself quickly ran down the stairs. I'm quicker than the Ming vase somehow, very fast elevator, and I go down and I pull the thing down. I pull the rug from under the Ming vase and it breaks. So here came an opinion over there, Rabbah, and it says that he's potu. Wow, potu. Wow. Why is it potu? Because there's no point in time you can actually be mechayev me. When I threw it, it was fine. I threw it into safe ground. Yeah, there was a whole net over there, not net. There was a whole bunch of cushions there. And the moment when I pulled out the rug, that's just a groma. In other words, at no given moment, I can be photographed as doing the entire crime. So a person who does it, it says it's a big tzaddik, gets a lot of Gan Eden and gets the best shidduch. I can joke a little bit, okay? It's of course it's a terrible thing. Chai b'dei shamayim, Hashem will punish, Gehenim. But b'dinei Adam, you can't be mechayvim. Here came machlokas rishonim whether that's groma or garmi. Some people say that's garmi. That's garmi. That's not groma. Garmi is higher than groma. So why is it potter? Because it's Rabba. Rabba, he is the one who holds garmi is potter. Why is it garmi? Because we know for sure that the nezek will happen. Listen carefully. Definition of garmi by some rishonim, and that is that the Nemuka Yosef, because we know it's going to happen, it's garmi. You know it's going to happen. Don't play games. I threw it. In other words, if you're not Rabba, if you're the regular mainstream opinion, of course you chayev, because it's not groma. It's for sure going to happen. Yeah, groma means I play a game, I do indirect actions, it may or may not cause. But if I know it's going to happen in a second, I'm playing the whole game here myself, it's going to happen for sure. That's called by us garmi, and we are not Rabba, let's say, would be mechayev. However, other Rishonim such as Li and Rashi, they say it's groma. Why is it groma and not garmi? Because you didn't touch it. Some people say garmi has to do with the magic touch. If you ever heard about shomer negia, it also applies to nezikin. You touched, you did the wrong thing. Which means garmi, which is higher than groma, according to those opinions, is because you did it with your own bare hands, such as burning the shtar. You took the shtar and you burnt it with the match. That's called ma'aseh b'yadayim. And the result is the check, it's only not the real value, it's the value you can get from the check. But the ma'aseh b'yadayim. However, those Rishonim hold that if I did the trick, the shtick with the vase, and I threw it, and then I took down the rug, since I never touched the actual vase, it's still called groma. Wow, not garmi, because they believe it's not about how certain you are it's going to happen, it's about touching it. To touch someone else's money, property in an illegal way, that frames you. That looks bad in the eyes of the halacha police. He touched. Mashenkin, if you threw from, although he did touch the thing, by the way, he touched the mink vase when he threw it. But at that point, he was very nicely cushioned. What was the real bad thing? That he pulled down the rug. Pulled down the rug. I didn't touch the vase. Because I didn't touch the vase, it's gromo, not garmi. It's gromo. Only garmi is only when you touch it. So these are the two definitions we have so far. Either garmi means it's a certain nezek, it's going to happen for sure, or garmi means you touched it.
Tent doesn't come into it.
No. I can see a lot of people have issue with that. I'm sorry if I sound like a fanatic guru. I'm happy to deprogram everybody here from the Western culture that they were born into. In other words, of course, intent comes into picture that the guy is a Rosha, the guy is a Bidei Shomayim, but when it comes to Beis Din, what Beis Din cares about is the actual Maisa. And that's a Gemara Daf Samech. Yeah, that's what the Heilige Torah decided. That's what Hashem decided. Aren't you happy to know that? When it comes to Beis Din's power to take money out of people's pocket because the damage or the steal, it has to do with physical actions. Just because they have intentions and plans and all kinds of schemes, in halacha, when it comes to paying, you don't have to pay. Although he does have to pay, me'atzmoi, by the way. The person has to pay in order to get kapor from Hashem. And according to the Meiri, he's supposed to leidus. That's not a joke. Next time they're going to invite him to a chasana, fancy chasana b'nyanei umah, and they call the two fancy choshev edim with the white beards. And then if the Rav knows the story, he will tell one of them in front of everyone, you're disqualified. Yes. Hush silence. Why is he disqualified? Because 5 years ago he did a groma. Now he can't be an aide in the chasana of Prince Abela and the chasana choshev Yankel Shmerel. Wow, what a busha. He can't be an aide. Okay?
I said to you, to ask that sort of